Gonna have now Mine and Right, Report and Right with Ray. Rayleen Hargreaves is a mining geologist with over 25 years of industry experience, currently serving as the Product Owner of Reconciler, an innovative solution for tracking, managing, and reconciling metals across the mining value chain. Ray is passionate about improving reconciliation in mining and aims to make reconciliation factors a standard for the mine sites, driving transparency and enabling benchmarking across the industry. Her expertise reflects in her co-authored papers, Transparency and Standardization in Metal Reconciliation Accounting, and her leadership in delivering impactful software solutions. Recognized as a Woman in Technology in WA 2020 role model and a 2022 nominee for Women in Digital Awards Technical Leader of the Year, Ray actively advocates for innovation and inclusion in mining. She combines a technical proficiency, global implementation experience, and a strategic vision to help mine sites to achieve better outcomes in reconciliation. Welcome, dear Ray.
Thanks, Bruno, for the kind introduction. Question. Have you ever stood behind a number in a report and hoped no one asked how you got it? No? This is not a survey, but if it was a survey and we could see some results coming up, it would be very interesting. No surprise, I'll be talking about reconciliation today. Not necessarily reconciler though, so I'll just put it out there. This is not a technical introduction to reconciler, but rather around reconciliation. And I hope it gives you a fresh perspective of reconciliation. It's not just about ticking compliance boxes, it's about how reconciliation can help you build trust in your numbers, in your team, and the decisions you stand behind. So let's start with the heart of it. Let's look at the planned numbers, and if they're not actually equaling the mined numbers, then the mined numbers don't match the reported numbers. We get into a bit of a world of pain. Geologists are left guessing, reports are filled with disclaimers, adjustments are made without traceability, and confidence, it erodes. We don't often see the impact until it's too late, until the monthly report's out, the model doesn't update, or the stockpiles are off by 10%. Does any of this sound familiar? This brings me to what I'm going to call the triangle of trust. And if it was just geology, we'd be fine, right? Because we're all doing the best we can do. But the geology side of things is based on what we model. But then we've actually got to incorporate what we mine and how we mine it. Reconcile, how we reconcile those numbers. And of course, how we report that. So why does reconciliation matter more than ever? Because we're sitting in that triangle of trust or mistrust, depending on the day, yeah? Regulators are asking tougher questions. Investors want transparency. And operations can't afford to make decisions on dodgy data. So when confidence in the numbers breaks down, you lose the ability to act decisively, to invest, to defend a result, to course correct before it's too late. And this is not just a diagram, it's a reality of every mine site that I've either worked at or visited over the last 20 plus years. Matt was just talking around some of the JORC code. This is the draft clause that includes reconciliation front and centre this time round. Very pleased to see it. And it clearly states that reconciling mine production against resource and reserve estimates is part of the validation process and should be reported where appropriate. So this clause is a quiet but powerful shift. It's saying reconciliation is part of quality control. It's not optional. For the first time, it formalises what many of us have been doing instinctively, that is checking our production against the resource and being transparent when the numbers do shift. But how do you prove it? How do you trace it? How do you report it? This is where tools like Reconciler come in, not just to tick a JORC box, but to embed trust into your process. So looking at some of the extracts from these proposed changes, and they may change between now and I suspect they will, but the fundamentals won't. So the fundamentals of reconciliation haven't changed over the years, and we're just trying to capture it in the JORC. So looking at some of these extracts, they emphasise the importance of reconciliation reporting, transparency and variance analysis in ensuring compliance and improving operational accuracy. So let's explore what these proposed updates are and what they mean for your operations. I'm going to start on the summary of proposed changes, where there'll be a new clause requiring the disclosure of an estimate to a prior estimate, or alternatively, the reconciliation of the mined part of an estimate to the mined production results. And in Reconciler, a mined part of an estimate is referred to as the model by survey, but you may know it as your model depletion or the as mined part of the model. Why is it important? Because the Australian Stock Exchange listing rules have requirements for these comparisons. Just to be clear, whenever I talk about reconciliation within Reconciler, I have the same definition as the proposed code, and that is the comparison of the estimate to another estimate or to an actual, like the mine production or plant production results. There are many variables in the geological models, and having any of these variables reconciled graphically can help understanding. Reconciliation between material modifying factors and actual mine production and mineral processing outcomes must be included in the public report. And this mandates that mining companies disclose how well their assumptions or their modifying factors are, match their real world results in their public reporting. So why does this matter? One, it ensures accountability in resource estimation and mine planning. Two, it helps investors and regulators understand if a company's forecasts are realistic. And three, it reduces the over-promising and under-delivering in production reports. Results should be presented in a simple format that also shows what the competent person deems to be acceptable tolerance limits of variation. And in Reconciler, we refer to the tolerance limits as control limits. But this isn't just about good practice anymore. It's fast becoming an expectation for public reporting. Trace it, report it, prove it. These are your guiding principles. Can you trace your tonnes? Can you confidently report them? And can you stand up in front of the regulator or your GM and prove them? If you can do that, you're not just reconciling, you're actually leading. So what does this mean practically for you? Operational teams need traceability to see where material has moved and how it has changed. You need systems that support transparent, consistent reporting. You need reconciliation workflows that are fully auditable and meet governance standards. And you need a single trusted source of truth. And tying it all together, public reporting expectations are rising, and transparency is no longer optional. We are not in the same reporting landscape that we were in 5 years ago. ESG scrutiny is increasing, shareholders are digging deeper, audit trails are being tested. Reconciliation, when it's done right, becomes a shield. It protects your data, your reputation, and your decision making. So mining it right isn't just about blasting or extraction. It's about making sure that every tonne you report can be backed up. Clean data upstream means fewer questions downstream. It reduces rework, it builds trust between departments, and yes, it saves time and stress during the monthly scramble. To report it right, you have to mine it right, and that means accurate models, reliable grade control, a trusted, reported, and I will say repeatable performance. And I've just got a screenshot here of the continuum within Reconciler, and Krista showed a portion of the North Parkes continuum this morning. But it's an opportunity to be able to track how well your models are performing against other parts along the mine value chain. And clear material tracking. And again, I've just grabbed a screenshot out of Reconciler to give a bit of a view over the visualization of how you can look at that material movement. But the message is, when your foundations are strong, everything downstream improves. When they're not, you face rework, reissuing reports, and missed insights. Strong source data and clear tracking reduces downstream headaches. So most sites we talk to are relying on disconnected spreadsheets and systems. Does that sound familiar? Yeah, spreadsheets. We all love a spreadsheet. We're geos. They have moisture estimates, standard density values, and haulage figures coming from like 5 different sources, and no one trusts any of them. Yeah? So what we do is we bring all of the data into one source of truth, and the transformation isn't just technical, it's cultural. It requires change, and we humans don't like change. But what happens is that people start agreeing on the numbers. The geology, processing and planning teams are finally looking at the same version of the truth. And here I'm just showing you some of the charting and dashboard capabilities within Reconciler that can help to tell your reconciliation story. So let me share a real-world example from a large-scale open-pit gold mine. The site had multiple disconnected data sources. Reconciliation was slow. To do the monthly was slow. It was inconsistent. It was often questioned. What we did, we implemented Reconciler, and we integrated with their existing PitRam, mine market, source data, their model depletions. We imported the model depletions. We categorized each data source as reliable, resolved, in progress, or adjusted, and not just those 3, but all of their data sources. We also added some logic and assumptions around the haulage, density and moisture, as well as automating the stockpile adjustments into Reconciler. So let's take a look at the impact this implementation had. We were able to mark 3 critical data inputs as reliable, and that was the depleted volume from the model, the material movements, and the stockpile survey volumes. 2 inputs that had previously been problematic, the crusher weightometer, which needed a recalibration, and the stockpile adjustments, which actually needed to be used, we reclassified as resolved after we addressed the underlying issues. Moisture and density inputs, which had historically been handled with workaround, are now traceable and auditable. But importantly, we brought the survey, geology and planning teams onto a single source of truth, so no more competing numbers or fragmented spreadsheets. And finally, the site is now audit ready with improved confidence across the board. So the key takeaway was that Reconciler enabled the site to move from a reactive patchwork of manual processes to a proactive trusted reconciliation workflow. Confidence in the data wasn't just restored, it became measurable and actionable. Before, it was finger pointing and patch-ups. After, it was audit-ready confidence, and they moved from a why don't these numbers match to a let's fix it here before it snowballs. There's still going to be problems, right? Reconciliation's not going to fix your problems, it's going to highlight where you need to look. And that's the value of trusted reconciliation, not just smoother reporting. We're not interested in that, but we want stronger decisions and better collaboration. So this slide isn't just a tidy before and after of the case study. It's a transformation that we do see all of the time. So what starts as firefighting, chasing numbers, adjusting in Excel, trying to fix discrepancies after the fact, becomes a proactive, confident process. And the biggest shift, not the automation, not even the audit trail, it was the mindset. The team moves from a who made this adjustment to let's understand what changed and why. And that's what Reconciler reveals. It's not just better data, but better conversations. And this is what good looks like. Automation replacing guesswork, clear logic driving decisions, and a pathway to resolve, not patch variances. It's no longer about who adjusted the number. It's about why the number changed and having the audit trail to show it. So let's talk about how reconciliation can create some value. On the left, you'll see a tick-the-box approach. This is reactive, retrospective, done for compliance, and often disconnected from decision-making. With contrast, the active, insightful reconciliation, which is continuous, drives improvement, and supports planning. It's proactive, it's collaborative, and adds real operational value. We've all had moments where reconciliation felt like a checkbox exercise. Do you agree? Yeah. Doing it because it's expected to be done. That's really a missed opportunity. There's value buried in that data if you look for it. And when you treat reconciliation as a diagnostic tool, not just a report, you start seeing patterns, identifying gaps, and finding opportunities for improving operations. So ask yourself, are we just ticking boxes or are we learning from the data? And I think this visual really drives it home. On the left, poor reconciliation, surprises at the end of the month, finger pointing, unexplained stockpile balances. And on the right, we see good reconciliation, so traceability, transparency, timeliness. It's about putting confidence back into the process so that everyone can move forward with trust. So before I wrap up, I'd like to leave you with what I'm calling the confidence test. Ask yourself these 3 questions and be honest with yourself. And if the answer to any of them is not quite, that's okay. That's where we start. Because trust is built, it's not assumed. And that starts with confident data, clear processes, and aligned teams. So the first question I want you to ask yourself is, can you confidently explain where your end of month numbers come from? I'm not talking about just the final figures, but every adjustment, every movement, every model to actual shift. Would you feel comfortable walking an external auditor or even a peer through the full chain of evidence? Next, do planning, geology, and processing teams truly trust each other's data? Truly being the underlying word there. Or do you spend part of each month reconciling interpretations, defending assumptions, or resolving conflicts between spreadsheets? I know I see a lot of that. And finally, if someone asked for a reconciliation walkthrough tomorrow, would you be audit ready? Could you pull a clear, traceable record of how tonnes and grade move from source to report? If any of those gave you pause, you're not alone. But it might be time to rethink your reconciliation approach. Because being able to stand up behind your numbers isn't just about compliance, it's about confidence, accountability, and better decisions. Mine it right, report it right, because when you can stand behind your data, you empower better reporting, better collaboration, and better decisions. And if there's one thing I want you to take away, it's that reconciliation isn't a chore, I promise. It's about building trust you can stand behind. It's your way of owning the story of what was mined and what was reported. And with the right approach and tools, you can make that story a lot stronger. Thanks so much for your time, and I'm happy to take questions or chat with me at lunch if you want to explore more about Reconciler or reconciliation best practices.